How do I learn to love and value myself again when my self-worth has always been based on doing things for other people or my accomplishments? That is today's viewer question. Oh, that's a big one. So before I answer the question, I'm going to walk you through what I found over years of my own healing journey were 7 key steps, 7 key principles, whatever you want to call them, to learning to love myself again for who I was rather than what I did. Because like many of us, growing up, I learned that you're a good person if you get straight A's. You're a good person if you're a good girl. You're a good person if you insert whatever you're doing for somebody else. And so I had built my self-esteem, my self-worth on these pillars of external validation. And when I turned 40, they all came crumbling down on the heels of my divorce. And so I had to learn at 40 how to finally and fully love myself back to fullness, back to wholeness, back to who I was meant to be, so that I could be of service to the world. So I want to share these 7 principles with you, and then I want to share a special event that I have developed for you called the Well-Nourished Goddess Online Summit. But let's get to the details. So what did I do? How did I heal myself back, love myself back into fullness, so that I could rely on internal validation rather than external validation for my sense of self-worth? The first thing I had to do was to stop comparing myself to everybody else. Because at the time, I was a comparison queen. I was so good at finding other people to compare my intelligence, my looks, my size, my success to. And no matter what, no matter how good I was or what grade I got, or it was never enough. And so what I found through my own work, through working with clients, is that when we compare ourselves to other people, we always end up on the losing side of things. Even if we temporarily feel like, well, I'm better than that person, it doesn't last, right? And so you've got to get that part out of the equation. You've got to stop the comparison game. And that was really hard for me to do, because at the time I was comparing myself to colleagues, to friends, to celebrities, to people in the media, to people who posted on their Facebook wall about how great their life was, right? Like I was comparing myself to everybody. So I had to stop all of that. And I actually went so far for a while as to institute a media ban, because I knew that if I bought a magazine or if I watched a TV show, I would start that comparison game. And so I tried to take as much as possible out of my world that I was comparing myself to, because I knew that if it wasn't there, I'd be much less likely to compare myself to that person. So that was my first step. And I'm going to give you the 7 steps in the order they came for me. But if one resonates more for you than others, then just start there. There's no exact science to this. It's an art, right? It's a journey, it's a process. So that was the first thing I had to do. I had to stop the comparison game. And when I stopped comparing myself to everybody else, and again, that was a process. And truth be told, it's still a process, because although I don't do it often now, occasionally, you're having a bad day, you don't get enough sleep, you start walking down that rabbit hole of self-comparison, and I'm like, whoa, wait, what am I doing, right? And so I'm not perfect, I'm human. I still sometimes start down that hole, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, I don't want to do that. That's not healthy. That's not good for me. It doesn't make me feel good inside to do that. So stop the comparison game. As I did that, I began to realize that because I had built my self-worth based in part on what I could do to other people and how well I was stacking up compared to somebody else, I really did not even know who I was. On the inside, right? I was because I was externally validating all the time. Internally, it was like I totally dissociated from myself and lost touch with who I was and what I wanted and what mattered. So steps 2 and 3 for me kind of came together, but that they are figure out who you are and what you care about. And consequently, figure out what are your needs and what are your wants for you to be this person, this version of you that you've decided you want to be. And for me, that was a woman who didn't have an eating disorder, because I had, for the 24 years prior, been suffering from borderline anorexia nervosa. I didn't want to be that woman anymore. I didn't want to weigh myself every day. I didn't want to obsessively work out. I didn't want to calorie count and weigh and measure everything. So part of figuring out who I wanted to be was figuring out who I didn't want to be. And that was actually the easiest thing to do, because I knew that woman was hurting and I didn't want to be her anymore. I didn't want to do the comparison game. I didn't want to do the weighing and measuring. I didn't want to always feel like I was falling short of somebody else's yardstick. So it was pretty easy for me to identify what I didn't want, who I didn't want in my life, what relationships were unhealthy for me. But then I had to figure out, okay, flip side, what do I want? Who am I? Who do I really want to be? And again, that was a process. So figure out who you are and what you want. And then step 3 would be, what do you need in order to be that person? And that's the process that I had to go through to start learning how to set healthy boundaries. And we've talked about that on the channel before. Healthy boundaries. Not answering email 24/7, not being on Facebook 24/7, not having to be the yes woman all the time. It was okay to say no. The world was not going to fall apart if I didn't show up for insert whatever, if I didn't do insert whatever, right? So what do you need in order for you to be that person that you want to be? And I needed healthy relationships. I needed really good friends and support members in my world. I needed tribe. I needed to set boundaries for myself around my own time. I needed to take care of me, exquisite self-care, because I knew that if I let myself get back down to that road, I was headed toward burnout, I was headed toward adrenal fatigue, I was headed toward sickness. And that's where I'd lived most of my life for the first 40 years, and I didn't want to go back there. I wanted to be healthy. So think of it in that term, if it helps. If you want to be healthy, what do you need in order to be healthy? Well, for me, I need enough sleep. I need to unplug by a certain time each night. I need to not check email first thing in the morning because I get drawn in and then my anxiety level goes through the roof. I need to eat, for me, again, 5 to 6 nourishing meals a day. So if you want to be, whatever it is, healthy, your own best friend, whatever you want to be, what do you need to make that happen? So steps 3 and 4 really go, or 2 and 3 really go hand in hand with one another. And I encourage you to take your time figuring this out and realize that this is a process, and that the more you learn about yourself, and we usually learn from our mistakes, that's just universe, God's way of saying, hey, this didn't work, let's try it a different way next time. And that's how we learn, as unpleasant as they may be. I know when I violate my own boundaries around email, around Facebook, around not working at weekends and evenings, that anxiety goes up, I stop sleeping well, I don't eat right. I know that that's not healthy for me. So, but I learned that through a series of mistakes where I realized I don't want to do that. I don't want to feel that way again. I don't want to be anxious as I'll get out at 6 o'clock in the morning because I'm checking email before I even get out of bed. I don't want to do that. Right? So learn from your mistakes. They're just chances for do-overs, right? Not that you can go back and redo that exact moment in time, but next time you'll know. And I'm not perfect. I still screw up, right? So it's okay. Just another mistake to help me learn what it is that I need to know. So stop the comparison game. Figure out who you are. And figure out what you need to be that person. Whatever it may be. Number 4. I want you to take that, what you need, to another level. And that is, what do you really want? Like big dream, no holds barred. What is your life path, life purpose? What's your big dream? What are you here to do? Because as we talked about before, I really believe that we all have a unique purpose. And we may do things that are similar to other people, but we do them our way. And that's what's so unique and cool and special about it. So you are here for a reason. So this was incredibly healing for me. Because once I stopped the comparison game, once I stopped trying to look like a super skinny model or keep up with the Joneses or, insert whatever, I was able to finally figure out who I was and what I wanted. And I realized it wasn't, when I really let myself dream, I realized I had had the same lifelong dream. And I wasn't doing it. Now, rather than beat myself up about it, as sometimes we tend to do, I allowed that be an aha moment for me. If this is where I am, and this is where I want to go, what's it going to take? I call this process envision what you want. It's like making a roadmap or a life map. If A is where you are and Z is where you want to be, I want you to write down all the steps that it would take that you think, and you may not even know, and you may keep adding, and that's okay. But as you learn more about how to get to where you want to be, ask advice, ask supportive tribe, ask sisterhood, ask experts who know, how did you get there? Because I kind of want to do something similar to what you're doing. Start writing down all the steps and then sub-step those even further. So if there's one step that seems really big, okay, break that down even further. And then you start doing them, right? So envision what you want is more than just envisioning your dream life. It's taking aligned action, teeny tiny micro baby step at a time to get closer and closer and closer to where you want to be. So that for me was step 4, envision what you want. Now, as I started to do that, what started happening? Not enoughness stuff started coming up again, right? Who are you to think you can write books? Who are you to think you can speak on a stage? Who are you to think write X, Y, Z? So then I had to do some healing work. I had to dive in. I had to start dialoguing with my inner critic and saying, well, why can't I? Right? And as inner critics do, they tend to bring up all kinds of reasons why you can't. And then my job, your job, is to start poking holes in their theory. So as I was on my healing journey, journaling has always been a big part of that because I love to write. And I was writing one day, and I was working with affirmations, and I wrote down the affirmation, I am enough. And immediately that inner critic, that little voice inside my head said, no, you're not. You're broken and you need fixing. In that moment, and I don't even know why this moment was any different than any of the previous moments for 40 years, but in that moment, I decided I was done. I was tired of putting up with this constant committee of critics. Let's face it, right? Your inner critic usually shows up in many, many forms. Constant committee of critics in my head. So I started fighting back. And I started journaling and dialoguing with myself, but really dialoguing with that inner critic committee in my head. Because I knew what I wanted. And I knew at that point in my healing journey, at least I wanted to believe that I was enough. I had come so far, right? I had stopped the comparison game. I had figured out who I was and what I wanted, and I was envisioning my big dream. And this inner critic was self-sabotaging and getting in my way. I'm like, no, I'm not going to let you do that anymore. I'm tired of this. So in that moment, I got out my pen. I actually got out 2 pens, one to represent me, one to represent my inner critic. And I started journaling. And so I am enough. She immediately, no, you're not. You're broken. You need fixing. Blah, blah. Why do you think that? Okay, so that was my question back to her. Why do you think that? So she started listing, you're infertile, you have endometriosis, you've had so many sicknesses, you almost died when you were 25 of pneumonia, and blah, 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 right? She was inserting all of these health things that yes, have happened for me and as part of my journey. But then I was able to be like, okay, let's third party this. Let's take a step back. Rather than falling into her nonsense and going down this pity party road of self-wallowing and I'm never going to be enough and woe is me. Like, I am tired of playing the victim role. I am taking my power back. I'm taking the reins of my own life back. So I started poking holes in her theory, right? I was like, okay, yeah, I've had some health challenges. Pretty good right now. And those health challenges, at that time it was 8 surgeries, right? And all of these health challenges got me to where I am today. And I am actually grateful. Because had I not been so tested, so tried, so pushed, so unhealthy, I wouldn't be able to heal. I needed that growth edge. I needed the misery to motivate me to overcome it. And so I started fighting back. I was like, yeah, I have endometriosis. Yeah, I can't have kids. Yeah, I almost died when I was 25 of pneumonia. Yeah, I've had 8 surgeries. So what? How is that going to stop me from writing books and getting on stage? How is that going to stop me from blogging and holding telesummits and helping the people I am meant to serve? It's not. It's not. I can overcome, because you know what? If I can go through all of that, if I can spend 7 days in ICU and come out alive and kicking on the other side, if I can go through 8 surgeries and still be a little scarred, but okay, I can do anything. So one of the things I love to say is my message, my message. And it's like, let those challenges, let those mistakes be stepping stones for where you're going. Work on your stuff. You gotta heal those issues. And as your inner critic crops up, I invite you to dive in. Stop buying into her nonsense. If I can do it, you can do it. Number 6, you've got to get comfy in your own skin again. For me, this was part of my journey because I had an eating disorder and I had so much body dysmorphia and body dissatisfaction, really loathing the woman in the mirror. I had to get comfy being me again. And this was also a multi-step process. So we've talked about this. And part of that was I had to stop comparing myself, my body to other people. I had to envision what I wanted because I was not meant to be a supermodel. That's not my goal, right? Most of us, that's not our life's purpose. And so it was useless for me to stop, to be comparing myself for something that was meaningless, right? It just like, that's not why I'm here. And so I had to start showing myself love and respect. And I started that with a daily gratitude practice. Now, I had been doing a gratitude practice for about a decade at that point. But every day at the evening, right before bed, I would write down 10 things I was grateful for that day. But I started adding to that. And I started writing down things I was grateful for about myself and my body. And let me tell you, at first that was really, really hard to do. But then I started realizing how much I did get done each day. Did I finish my to-do list every day? No. But I started patting myself on the back for the things I did get done. Is my body perfect and cover ready for? No, it never will be. I'm human, right? We're all human. Nobody is, not even the supermodels. But you know what? My lungs breathe and I don't have to tell them. My heart beats and I don't have to tell it to do anything. My brain thinks. I walk, I move, and I don't have to really think about it. And I started realizing how much my body does for me. And I started to be grateful for me and all the things I got done, all the things I had been through, all the stepping stones of my life that I had used to rise above. And even in healing that 24-year journey with anorexia nervosa, beginning to understand that my body was a miracle and that Even if I had a muffin top or cellulite or adult onset acne, it was okay because my body was still a miracle. It was still doing all these things to just keep me going. And I didn't have to tell it to do anything. It just was. So that in and of itself was its own journey and its own process. And that's kind of step 6. But the final step, which is definitely ongoing in a process, is I had to learn to take care of me, to fill my own cup, to put myself first. No, it's not selfish. Here's why. I spent decades giving and giving and doing until I was drained and depleted and exhausted. Hello, 8 surgeries and numerous health crises, one of which almost killed me, right? So I am a poster child for needing self-care, because when, at least my body is loud and clear. When I am not taking care of me, it's going to let me know. First it'll be a sniffle, then it may be like a cold or a flu. But if I don't listen, it's going to take me out. And I'm going to end up in the OR. Or I'm going to end up in the ICU. And I don't want that to happen again. Because you know what? Go back to step 4. You can't be who you're supposed to be if you're knocked out by illness. And maybe like me, that illness is part of your journey. It's part of that stepping stone that you're going to figure out who you're meant to serve and how you're meant to serve, because you want to help people not be there anymore. And that really was so much of my journey. My mess is my message. And so now I help women all over the world realize, if I don't fill my own cup, A, nobody else is going to do it for me. It's my job. It's my responsibility. But B, I can't be of service. I can't be there for my kids. I can't be there for my spouse, my partner, my work, my friends, my family, my sisters, my brothers, my aunts, my uncles, all the people that I love. I can't be there for that if I'm taken out. And if I don't take care of me, I'm going to get taken out. And I'm going to be exhausted and depleted and bitter and resentful and sick. Really, really sick. Physically, mentally, emotionally, however it may show up for you. So in addition to those 7 steps, what I have for you, starting on Monday, September 18th, I am hosting a 2-week-long online summit, The Well-Nourished Goddess, The Art of Sacred Self-Care. 21 experts. They are all incredibly busy women. If they can make time for self-care, you can make time for self-care. They share their heartbreak, they share their struggles, they share their own misery, so that you know that you're not alone. And then they share how they healed and how they got to be the beacons, the icons, the incredible women that they are today. And how we're all still human, and yeah, sometimes we still get taken out, but we know what to do and we bounce back faster, because we know you've got to put self-care at the top of your priority list. I know you're busy. I know you're thinking, I don't have time for anything else. You are so worth your own time. You owe this to yourself. I'm bringing you 21 experts, video format or audio format. You can literally listen to this in the car, MP3, on your way to work, on your way to your kid's soccer game, on your way to the dentist, when you're exercising, right? So I've made it as convenient for you to listen in what Tony Robbins calls your net time, right? No extra time. So you can start to learn how to fill your own cup. Because please, please, please take it from someone who has had a lifetime of health struggles and thought she was flawed and broken because of it. You can't go back. You can't change the past. I can't tell you what would have happened, had I actually been taking care of myself for all of those decades. I likely wouldn't have had a lot of those health struggles, but again, I'm very grateful for them, because they got me to where I am today. And they got me to bring this message to you. It is time to make time for you. TheWellNourished.Goddess.com. Sign up today. We start Monday the 18th. 21 experts. I promise you, you're going to learn a lot of incredible tips from incredibly busy people on how to create those tiny moments to fill your cup. I hope that this answered your question. I hope that this served you. I hope that these 7 steps resonated with you, or at least some of them did. And I hope that you'll take time for you and join whatever parts of the summit that you can.